SEOscience.com.
Welcome to another episode of SEO Science. I'm your host, Richie Billing, and I'm delighted to be joined by Miko. How's it going, Miko?
I'm good, yeah.
No, we've been busy in the office, getting a few things sorted after that month-long update, or pair of updates, wasn't it?
It's still not done, rolling out either.
Yeah, I've heard
Still
it's
going.
still carrying on, isn't it?
Yeah. Clearly they've hit some snags along the way with the update.
So don't get too comfortable just yet. But we've got an interesting subject today because we were chatting, weren't we, earlier this week about some interesting trends that we've noticed. And one of them, which is going to be the focus of today's episode, is Bing. We've spoken a lot about Bing and its potential, and now it's got ChatGPT. But we never really saw any kind of results. But in the last few weeks and months, things have started to change. So I think it's before we dive in, it's if you're not familiar with what's been going on, let's talk a bit about the new Bing search functions and designs and how it's all translated in terms of statistics. So Miko, do you want to give us a little overview?
Yeah, so Bing in the past few years, I think in 2021, where they acquired OpenAI, I think it's OpenAI. They then put ChatGPT into the search engine, which they now have renamed to Copilot whenever you want to use it in the actual search to distinguish it from ChatGPT, I assume. And now you can, if you search, it will ask you questions about your query. It will try to find out where you want to go, and it will try to find out exactly how to get you to that point by using prompt injection strategies and things like that. So if you are experienced at using AI, you can easily find things that you need in the search by itself. And they also recently introduced a new feature called Deep Search, which when you look at the Bing and you look at the top, there's a little magnifying glass, but that is got a cross through it. I think it's like a cross or like a line, and that's the deep search. And what the deep search does is it will bring up all the features of a product, all the support, like extra bits that you might want to know about it in one convenient location. And from a user's perspective, I think it's a lot better of a search engine than Google is by itself right now.
Yeah, I agree. Like when you just playing around with it before, and yeah, it is. What struck me is how similar it looks to Google now, particularly like the maps. So like Bing Maps is you wouldn't know if you just saw a screenshot, you'd think it was Google. It's amazing really how they've led to that and spending so much money on this. And having such a small market share, you'd kind of hope that if you were putting that money in, you'd kind of hope to shift the dial a little bit. I mean, you spent 10 billion just on OpenAI, helping Bing improve. And the statistics have been quite interesting, haven't they, in terms of like there's a really good article on Backlinko which summarizes the Bing data. Now, the data is only as of January 2024, and we've got a couple of case studies, which we'll talk about later, which look at more recent data, and the jumps there are quite significant. But just looking at the sort of the key statistics, so Bing, in terms of like desktop searches, it's got a market share of about 10.5%. Now, since 2021, that's grown by 63%, which is huge if you think about it. What do you think? I mean, have you been using Bing more? Do you think that's like the user experience that we've been talking about? Do you reckon that's contributed to people using it more?
Yeah, and not only that, but one of the things that doesn't really get talked about when reporting on Bing is that consoles, i.e., the Switch and the Xbox One and the previous Xbox versions, obviously all use Bing as the default search engine on their
Yeah,
consoles because they're integrated as a Microsoft console. Um, so that also contributes to the whole ease of use and like the user experience, which I think is why they made it so like simple and easy to use and like basically so that you could speak to it. Like say if you were rather than typing in anything, you were just vocalizing it.
yeah,
I think that has something that has a bit of a better chance of working because it's something that has been integrated in Windows since I think Windows Vista in 2005, like the speech recognition software. And now because you can just say like Xbox find this for me, or Bing find this for me,
yeah,
makes it a lot better and easier to interact with the AI and the search engine at the same time,
yeah.
which I think contributes to like the growth that it has seen.
The console market is an interesting one because they absolutely dominate that. Like Google's nowhere to be seen. And that is like a good sort of foundation stick for them there. And just looking at like simple things like Microsoft Desktop, like if you're just on your desktop now, the search bar at the bottom is tied into Bing, so you can make searches from the toolbar at the bottom. So obviously that's if it's giving you the results that you want, then you're going to use that more and more. Um, one shocking thing that I found though, which I don't know how it's going to overcome this really. But in terms of the mobile market, Bing only has a 0.5% share,
Hmm.
which is like absolutely minuscule. Like I'm guessing it's just completely dominated by Safari and Chrome. I know they have all kinds of deals and contracts with each other to make sure that those browsers are used. But in terms of like Bing's impact on the mobile market, that it still remains pretty minuscule. Um, what do you think about Bing potentially expanding the mobile side?
Well, this is an interesting one because Bing and Microsoft were in a legal battle with Google for quite a while. Well, I think it was a class action lawsuit or something like that. I think that's what they call them, about monopolizing and not being able to put Bing as a default search engine on Microsoft desktops, which is interesting because Google and Apple have reached an agreement to make Google the default search engine on Safari. So Apple has it. Android is run by like Google APIs and Google App Store. So therefore they have this market share between all the most common mobile brands that you can't really get out of. So what I think is going to happen probably in the future, maybe, a couple of years from now, is that Microsoft will then counter that lawsuit that they went through and say, well, look, on mobile, every single one is default to Google. So what, like, did we get punished? Like,
Yeah,
why can't we have it on our desktops?
you know, it's uh, it's interesting because I suppose a lot of Google's power comes from the fact that it's obviously a search engine and it's a browser with Chrome.
Hmm.
Edge, I still wouldn't really go to use Edge. You know what I mean? It's like Internet Explorer back in the day. It's never been like a something that you'd use. So maybe that is a bit of a weakness in terms of like pairing up the browser with the search engine itself. I don't know.
Mm. Well, it does come with a lot of like user experience and user like what the user wants effectively from a operating system versus something like a browser or something like that,
Yeah,
where a user doesn't necessarily want a browser to be default with their computer because they have so many different options. Like you had Firefox, Opera, you have Chrome, obviously. I can't remember any of the old ones. Netscape, that's a throwback. AOL, there was so many that you could use, um, which are now no longer, in use. Um, which I think also shows like how the technology has moved like so much in the past years. Like things like AOL, people don't even know what those are anymore. And so that's old school at this
Yeah.
point.
Oh. Every now and then you see a few Blue Yonder email addresses popping up.
Oh yeah.
If you have a Blue Yonder. So we wanted to talk about some interesting changes to these statistics. I personally think that what I've noticed on my own site, which is an education site, it's richieburn.com. So it's all about writing stuff, creative writing and things like that. But I've noticed a big surge in Bing users. And we were looking at some of the statistics on where the referrals were coming from. Nico, you're a lot better at maths and stuff like that than me, and you've ground the numbers together, haven't you? And you've found some interesting things. So we compared 2023 and we've compared 2024 so far because I've been noticing this little uptick within probably the last 2 or 3 months. So let's see what you found, Nico.
Yeah, so so this is in 2023 and 2024. So first of all, in 2023, your site had 86.37% coming from Google and 8.89 from Bing in terms of total traffic, and other traffic accounted for 4.74% of the total. However, in 2024, your site had 75.31% of the traffic coming from Google, with 16.99 coming from Bing and 7.7 of all other traffic coming from other sources. So that's a big difference. Like that means that it's under, well, obviously it's not been a full year, but in between 2023 and 2024, Bing, sorry, has improved by over 100% nearly.
Yeah,
So it's nearly doubled in the amount of traffic that's coming to it.
it's mental, isn't it?
Mm.
And I was thinking of this before, like, because we've got another, we checked a few other sites and we've got another case study which we'll discuss in a bit. But I was wondering whether it would have anything to do with certain niches and whether like certain niches would perform better on Bing, and whether that would tie into the types of people who use Bing. Because I was looking at some interesting stats before about like the demographics of Bing users. Now there's some really interesting ones like most people who are going to use Bing are between 18 and 44. That's about 70 or 67% of all users are between that age bracket. And I think that ties in quite interestingly with the consoles, because I imagine that age range is going to be playing consoles a lot more. Also, 2/3 of Bing users are men, which is an interesting one.
Yeah. I don't know if that would that fall under like it just being like more console related maybe, but
It could be, but I know a lot of women play consoles as well. I don't know why 2/3, like so many men are using Bing. Maybe they just like the ease of the ChatGPT. They don't like thinking too hard. But I don't know. It's a bit of a weird one, but I think maybe certain niches might tie in or might perform better on Bing, given things like that. That's just pure speculation. But I don't know. What do you think?
Well, it's difficult to judge it just based on the demographic itself. Like 18 to 44 is a massive range as well. Like
Yeah,
obviously that would be right.
two generations in there.
So maybe it's like I would expect it to be noticeably older. Is because like obviously if you're an older person and you have come pre-programmed with a computer, you have like this option to like instantly just go on Edge and then go on Bing and then all of that combines. So that makes it easier. But to see it's mainly 18 to 44 is a bit crazy to be honest, because that means yeah, it has to be mainly console based, I think, like especially the 18 to older bracket. Um, Also something to think about niches now that you bring it up. Maybe the reason your site is performing well is because people are like asking ChatGPT for like prompts, and then
Yeah.
that like obviously because that's what it's based around, right? So then you have like, if someone's looking for like a writing help, let's say, like Bing might direct them to your website, for example.
Yeah. And I wonder what, because you're speaking to something almost, you're going to ask more question-based
Yeah.
keywords. You're not going to search like keywords, are you? Like I would do that like on Google sometimes, would just like type a random bunch of, well, not a random bunch of keywords, but keywords that don't make any sense put together. But when you're speaking to a chatbot, you need to articulate a bit more. So maybe people are asking more questions, and that's why educational based sites, which are geared towards providing the answers, they might do better.
I can see that.
Yeah. So we did another case study, didn't we? And this was just looking at one of our network sites. It's so I think it's quite interesting. Do you want to show us what we found?
Yeah, so similarly to the last one, so starting off with 2023, the site had a 84.2% of total traffic coming from Google, with 6.3% coming from Bing and 9.5% of all traffic coming from other sources. Then in 2024, the site too had 82.6% of traffic coming from Google, with 10.4% coming from Bing and 6.93% of traffic coming from other sources. So it lost out some from other sources, but Bing again has moved up to about 75. It had a growth of about 75% between 2023 and 2024 so far.
Yeah.
Obviously, that number could change, but I think also it might help that a lot of our niches tend to be informational as well.
Yeah.
So that's also something that you might be asking the chatbot to like, tell you. And then that brings up the websites that we have.
Yeah. It's really interesting. Like it's for 1 year, and they're big jumps. And I mean, we're saying they're big. Like you might not think 4% is a big jump, but like we're talking like massive volumes per percentage. So if you're able to shift the dial even a little bit, it can make a huge, huge difference. So it remains to be seen, doesn't it? Like how this is going to go. We're seeing a massive trend towards Bing, based on the year so far. We were seeing it all last year as well, especially towards the end of last year. Do you reckon it's going to be worrying for Google now that?
I think from what I've heard on SEO Roundtable, a lot of people are not happy with the update. I think a lot of those people did use AI for a lot of the websites, or like maybe experiments and things like that, which is why they've been hit. But that sentiment isn't unwarranted. Like if you're going to lose like your livelihood or whatever based on like a Google update, that's not great. And obviously that it stings. So maybe what people will do as a reaction to that is then SEOs will start trending towards more Bing, like using Bing analytics and like focusing more around how to, optimize for Bing, how to optimize for ChatGPT or the assistant as it calls it. And then you can maybe make some gains through that. Obviously, it's still considerably smaller than Google. Like there is a big difference in market share, but if you can do it, obviously they can always help. So
Yeah, I think now it's starting to reach that 10%, or in case of my website, 20%. That's something you can't really ignore anymore. When it was like 3, 4, 5%, fair enough. It's just like everything else. I think you were nearly getting more searches from DuckDuckGo.
yeah.
But it's this is different now, and I think the reason why we wanted to cover it on today's episode is, I don't know, just I'll get people thinking about the potential. Just have a little look into it, see what you can do, see if you can implement it as part of your strategy, and I'm sure we're going to cover it again, aren't we? How to do Bing SEO. We're going to do a few experiments ourselves and share what we learn.
Come back next year for when we when Bing has taken over Google's market share fully. So that's what the AI people want you to think anyway. So
yeah, who knows? World moves fast. Oh, thanks very much, Miko. Been great chatting with you as always. Thank you very much at home for listening. If you'd like any help with your SEO, you've got any questions or like to get involved, just drop us an email. Our website is below, billionmedia.co.uk. Thank you again for listening.